The mist hung thick over the battlefield, each breath damp and heavy with anticipation. The air itself seemed to tremble, alive with the crackle of imminent conflict. On one side, the Tuatha Dé Danann, led by the radiant and fearless Lugh, whose sharp gaze never wavered. Across from them loomed the towering figure of Balor, his massive form casting a dark shadow over the land. His single, cursed eye remained shrouded, but the threat of its deadly power pulsed through the air like a living thing. Every warrior could feel it, a force waiting to be unleashed. The low, rhythmic thud of war drums echoed through the haze, each beat reverberating in Lugh's chest, as if syncing with his own racing heart. The earth trembled beneath the weight of the armies, the very ground anticipating the clash of steel and fury that would decide the future of the world. Lugh's breath quickened, not out of fear, but out of the sheer gravity of what lay ahead. He could feel the weight of destiny pressing down on him, the eyes of gods and men alike fixed on this moment. Balor, monstrous and unyielding, began to lift the heavy lid of his fatal eye. Legends whispered of its power, instant death to any who met its gaze. Lugh's pulse quickened, his muscles tense as time seemed to slow. Could he summon the strength, the precision, to strike before Balor's gaze obliterated all hope? The moment of reckoning had arrived, and the world held its breath. From the moment Lugh took his first breath, the winds seemed to whisper of his destiny. Born of two worlds, his father, a noble of the Tuatha Dé Danann, and his mother, a descendant of the fearsome Fomorians, he carried the weight of both light and shadow in his veins. The clash of these ancient enemies echoed through the land, and yet, in this child of prophecy, there was hope for something greater. As a boy, Lugh's sharp eyes absorbed every lesson, every strike of the sword, every word of wisdom whispered by the wisest masters of warfare, magic, and strategy. He moved like the wind, swift, silent, and unstoppable, driven by an inner fire that seemed to burn brighter with every passing day. But as Lugh grew in strength and wisdom, so too did his greatest foe. Far to the west, Balor, the monstrous king of the Fomorians, grew ever more ruthless, his single deadly eye casting fear across the land. His rule was absolute, forged in fear and blood. The air around him seemed to thrum with malice, as if the very earth trembled beneath his feet. As Balor's power surged, the prophecy loomed larger, whispering of the inevitable clash between these two titans. In every step Lugh took, in every glance cast toward the horizon, fate moved ever closer, spinning the threads that would one day bind their destinies on the battlefield. The seeds of their final confrontation were not just sown, they were already beginning to take root. Lugh's early years were a whirlwind of relentless training, his muscles burning from the strain of mastering combat, while his mind sharpened like the edge of a blade. Each day, the clang of swords echoed through the air, sweat pouring down his face as he learned the art of war. But Lugh's brilliance didn't stop at the battlefield. His mind, quick and strategic, absorbed knowledge like a sponge, crafting plans and outsmarting his opponents long before the first strike was made. The title, Lugh of the Long Arm, wasn't just a testament to his reach in battle, but to his extraordinary ability to grasp every skill that came his way. Meanwhile, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. Balor, his monstrous grandfather, was not idle. The Fomorian king built his armies, feeding the fear that spread like wildfire through the land. Lugh could feel the weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders, a prophecy whispered in hushed tones of a fateful battle where he would face the very bloodline that threatened the world. As the storm of war approached, Lugh stood on the edge of fate, his heart steady, knowing that the day of reckoning was fast approaching. Determined to rise, every breath he took was a step closer to facing the towering shadow of Balor, the enemy he was destined to meet. As Nuada, the once mighty king of the Tuatha Dé Danann, stood weakened, his hand lost in the fury of battle, a shadow of doubt fell over his people. The throne was empty, and the hearts of the Tuatha faltered. But in that moment of despair, Lugh rose from the ranks, his presence commanding attention like a storm on the horizon. This was his moment. The gods watched from the heavens, their hope now resting on his shoulders. Lugh, with eyes that gleamed with determination and hands forged in the fires of skill and wisdom, stepped into the void. The air crackled with the weight of destiny. Every whispered breeze seemed to carry the name of Balor, the monstrous Fomorian king whose single deadly eye had the power to obliterate all in its sight. The threat of annihilation loomed, casting a dark veil over the Tuatha Dé Danann. But Lugh did not waver. The weight of his ancestors, blood pulsed through his veins, and with each step, the earth beneath him trembled, knowing the clash of titans was near. He knew there was no turning back. This war was inevitable. The stage was set, the fate of the gods balanced on the edge of a blade. The ultimate showdown between light and shadow had begun, and Lugh, their last hope, marched toward a battle that would echo through eternity. As the Tuatha Dé Danann advanced toward the looming battlefield of Mag Tuired, the air itself seemed to thrum with anticipation. The sky, once clear, began to darken as clouds gathered, reflecting the tension gripping every warrior's heart. Lugh, standing at the forefront, could feel the weight of fate pressing on his shoulders. With each step, the earth trembled beneath their feet, echoing the mounting dread of facing Balor's monstrous Fomorian forces. The distant sound of war drums grew louder, and the metallic clink of armor sent chills down their spines. Yet, amid the fear, Lugh's eyes gleamed with unwavering determination. He moved among his troops, his voice calm yet commanding, his presence a beacon of hope. He had woven alliances from threads of trust, crafting a formidable army, and now every strategy was in place. But in the back of his mind, the whispered legends of Balor's deadly eye haunted him, the eye that could obliterate entire legions with a single fiery gaze. The smell of impending rain mixed with the metallic scent of weapons, as the gods above murmured in hushed tones of Balor's unspeakable power. Lugh's heartbeat quickened, but he clenched his jaw, knowing he possessed a weapon even greater than strength, a mind sharper than any sword, a will stronger than any fear. As the clash of steel echoed across the battlefield, the once fierce resolve of Lugh's army began to waver. The Fomorians surged forward with a terrifying force, their war cries mingling with the desperate screams of the fallen. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood and the suffocating stench of sweat and fear. Lugh's heart raced as he watched his warriors fall, one after another, their shields shattered, their cries fading into the chaos. The sky darkened overhead, as if the very heavens were holding their breath. Then came the final blow, betrayal. One of Lugh's most trusted allies switched sides, slipping through the ranks and whispering secrets to the enemy. Balor's single eye gleamed with cruel satisfaction, its deadly gaze lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to strike. Panic tightened in Lugh's chest. His mind raced. Could he stand against this monstrous force, this beast whose gaze could annihilate him with a single glance? The weight of his lineage pressed down on him. His people's hopes and survival rested on his shoulders. The roar of battle dimmed in his ears, replaced by the deafening silence of doubt. For the first time, Lugh questioned, was this the end? The sky darkened, the air thick with tension as Balor, towering and monstrous, slowly lifted his heavy eyelid. A chilling aura filled the battlefield as the deathly gaze of his cursed eye was revealed, a gaze said to destroy anything in its path. Lugh's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a reminder that everything hung on this moment. The weight of his people's survival pressed on his shoulders, yet his focus remained unshaken. This was it, the moment of destiny he had trained for all his life. With the world seemingly holding its breath, Lugh swung his sling, the stone cutting through the air with lethal speed. Time slowed as it struck true, piercing Balor's cursed eye with perfect precision. A sharp crack echoed through the battlefield, followed by a silence that seemed to stretch for eternity. Then, the unimaginable happened. Balor's eye, once a weapon of mass destruction, turned against his own army, unleashing a force so devastating that the Fomorian ranks crumbled. The clashing swords fell silent, the cries of battle ceased, and for a brief, timeless moment, the entire world stood still. Lugh had done the impossible. He had vanquished a terror thought undefeatable, forever changing the fate of the gods and the world. The battlefield lay in eerie silence, the faint smell of blood and iron hanging in the cold air. The ground, once shaken by the clash of gods and monsters, now felt still, too still. Every warrior could feel the weight of what had just occurred. The once mighty Fomorians, led by the fearsome Balor, had fallen, their defeat etched into the earth beneath them. Lugh, standing tall amidst the ruins of war, had done the impossible. His eyes, still fierce with the fire of battle, scanned the horizon as if searching for a remnant of the chaos that had ruled moments before. Balor, whose single, deadly eye had once held the power to destroy entire armies with a glance, lay lifeless. The sky, once darkened by the storm of war, now began to clear, and the distant sound of wind through the trees whispered the beginning of a new era. As the years passed, the story of Lugh's triumph spread like wildfire across the land. His name became a symbol of courage, not just for his strength but for the brilliance with which he wielded it. The gods whispered his legacy, and mortals told tales of the battle that reshaped the world. But even in victory, there was a sense of unease, a knowing that peace, however sweet, would one day be tested again. The gods of the land could rest for now, but the echoes of the battle would linger, a reminder that balance is fragile, and the next great conflict was always waiting on the horizon.